Welcome to the Elevate Your Equity podcast, where we, as married busy professionals, leverage real estate investing to unlock the 3+1 degrees of freedom: health, location, time, and financial.
And today we've got an incredible guest pair on the show with us. We've got Miss Erica and Mr. Reed Goosens on the call. How are you guys today?
Pretty good. How are you?
Great. Good to see you guys. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves to the audience? Maybe we can start with Reed or Erica, whoever wants to go first.
Ladies first.
Sure. Yeah, my name is Erica Reiner. I grew up here in Southern California for the most part, and I have an interior design business that I started just maybe like 6 months to a year after you started yours in like 2014 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we specialize in eco-friendly products and materials. So I have been working on that for the past few years. And occasionally I get the pleasure of working with Reed on some of his syndicated real estate projects.
And she's underestimating herself. She does a very good job, and she's a high quality interior designer. And we're very fortunate to have her do our multifamily projects as well from time to time.
Excellent. And what about you, Reed?
Hello, everyone. West Texas accent, as you can clearly tell from me. Originally from Australia and moved here to chase her and to move to New York City in 2012. Came as a structural engineer, really just wanted to be an expat, be an Aussie living in the US. It was a really great visa for Australians, but soon got bitten by the real estate bug. And it's going on 10 years, which is nuts. We moved here in 2012, we moved back in 2012. In that time, we've grown my own portfolio, podcast, and I probably wouldn't be standing here without this one next to me. So she has been my rock for sure, and through thick and thin, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. We are glad to have you here. And so what I'd like to do then is maybe just start at the beginning, like we do with most of our podcast guests. I assume, Erica, that your beginning with real estate investing started perhaps a little bit later on than Reed, or maybe I'm mistaken there. Either way, I'd like either one of you guys to tell us how you got involved in real estate in the beginning and got that spark.
My involvement in real estate investing is zero. So we both have businesses, and sometimes they come together in a fun way, like I just mentioned, but he is the real estate person. And while I have absorbed a lot of knowledge and info through osmosis of being around him through his journey, yeah, they're fairly separate. But
I will say that as you guys know, when you go down this path of, financial independence, you learn a lot about P&Ls and balance sheets and all that sort of stuff. And I've definitely noticed in Erica's business and her interior design business that she's had to learn all that as well. Like any sort of fresh business, it's like, all right, how do I drive revenue? All right, how do I drive down costs? All right, how do I do marketing? Like the same things that apply in real estate apply in it's a balance sheet game, right? How do you understand a balance sheet? And for me, that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, sort of talks about understanding having a financial literacy. And I've definitely noticed you, honey, crushing it in terms of that type of, not everybody, we don't go to school and get taught that. So you got to it's more self-taught over time.
Yeah, 100%. And I really apologize for the guests or for the podcast listeners who are just listening and not watching, because there was some incredible visual cues there, like some fist pumping and stuff like that you're missing out on. So you just have to hop onto YouTube to catch that. But in any event, thank you guys for explaining your background. Let's just start there, right? You guys, it seems like you are working together as a pair in a very strong way. How did you guys leverage each other's strengths? Because was this more of like a process of discovery? Or as you guys were growing the business together, you realized that there's stuff that you didn't want to do and the other person just kind of filled in and helped there? How did that whole unraveling work?
I think in the beginning, for me, being my own boss was definitely something that I've always resonated with. Working the 9 to 5, being stuck in a cubicle was really, that's the sort of the spark within inside me when I picked up the book Rich Dad Poor Dad back in 2010. And I can't speak for Erica in terms of her, desire to go and be your own entrepreneur. But for me, that's where it really started from. And the word entrepreneurship, I had no idea what even that meant. Like, it's just really a small business owner, right? It's just a cool word for being a small business owner and not having a job. But questioning what we were taught as children and growing up, and like, hey, you got to go get a good education, you got to go, get this, diploma or whatever it might be at university, and you go into the workforce, and then at 65 you get to retire and enjoy your life. Like, and I knew quickly early on that I was not feeling that. My background's in engineering, and again, I can't speak for Erica, but I felt like a small cog in a big machine when I was working in the corporate world. And so that was really my pain point to move away from, to go and explore this world of financial freedom. I don't know about you.
Well, yeah, I guess, like, I think we'll have to come back to your question, because this, background story, or like the impetus of our journey, is a little bit different than like how our dynamic is now. But to continue on that thread, I also read a book. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it didn't have as big of an impact on me as the 4-Hour Work Week, another very common one, Tim Ferriss. And I think it kind of like gets to the same thing, where it's like, there's a lot of potential in working for yourself, and a lot of, potential freedom and time and resources, and curating like a lifestyle, which I think is attractive to a lot of people in our generation, very different than what our parents and grandparents kind of went through. So that, yeah, exactly. Like, I had worked for a lot of people, a lot of men, felt very like underappreciated and undervalued and untapped potential a lot of the time. And also, I was in the environmental field, and I couldn't always get like the green tree hugging job that I wanted. And then eventually, when I did, to a degree, being an adjunct environmental science professor, but I was spread really, really thin in time, and they kind of just structure things to make it really hard to keep doing that. And so I was all over, and it just wasn't really working. So I was like, well, I think instead of going back and working for another like Joe Schmo, I might as well like try this for myself. And it's only now, like this year, after all this time, that like finally the lifestyle and freedom and time and resources and all that kind of stuff is shaping into how we had imagined. So it did take that long. And along the way, there was a lot and we're definitely working in very separate industries, and sometimes our problems are very different, but sometimes they have the same like root cause or feeling or, decision or hurdle. So it's been really, really helpful to have someone who's, kind of going through something similar all along the way. Even though, there's lots of differences, it's like at the heart of it. I think if I was like doing a regular 9 to 5, I don't think I could be as empathetic, and vice versa.
Yeah, I have to jump in here to admit that everything that you're just talking about right now, Erica, is pretty much our dynamic as well. I had a W-2 position, and Sophie was trying to, she was working her business at the same time. And I had a business too. I had my own, I had my real estate stuff, but it was mostly happening on the side, and it was being funded by my W-2. So it was kind of like, not like I was out on my own with this, because I had like my own source of revenue to be able to live off of, and then pump money into these rentals. So it was more of like a side gig kind of thing. But it wasn't until, I left the full-time workspace, back last year, in the middle of last year, that I got a true understanding for what Sophie's business was. And I think that like that has that adds an extra layer to the relationship, doesn't it?
100. I think 100% it does. And for both of us, at least from my point of view, looking at how you, as a solo entrepreneur, particularly in the beginning, or let's even take a step back, we both had side hustles, both myself and Erica, when we're building these businesses, right? You start from an itch to want to go out and pursue something more, but you can't let go of the vine of the consistent W-2, the roof over your head, the paying for the bills. And so when you're going through those times, and in both in our lives, we're different journeys, different stages, like having the understanding of what the other person's going through is really important, because that's where the support comes. And I think, quote unquote, the success that both of us have had, whatever, however you judge success, comes down to who you choose as a partner, right? And how you both step up to the plate to support one another through both thick and thin when you're going through stuff that the average person who is not entrepreneurial leaning won't ever have to go through, i.e. working after, waking up really early before work to get some work done and staying up late after work to get some stuff done, working on weekends, and sacrifice matters. And that other person who's on the other side being there to support them is really important, because I think you need to have champions in your life when you're starting a business, and the first champion comes from your spouse.
Absolutely, so much wisdom that you shared there, Reed. And I wanted to ask you, because Derek, he comes from a chemical engineering background, so there's sort of that common engineer brain or logic that that it's hard to say, okay, well, I have this consistent W-2 that I can rely upon. Well, can you walk us through what you were thinking in your mindset when you were starting to let go of the idea that, hey, this W-2 isn't really for me anymore? Because honestly, a lot of professionals, engineers, doctors, like that's a very hard thing for them to do.
Yeah, and I'll talk again, and I'll let Erica speak for her personal experience, but for mine was an internal struggle. When you see the light of something else, or you start getting really intrigued about real estate, and in my space is real estate, and for Erica's it was interior design and environmental studies and science. When you have that passion, you then start looking at other things like a job. Like, oh God, I'm freaking still here. Like, oh my, I hate this. And it wasn't until I reframed myself and said, so when we moved from New York to LA, I got a structural engineering job in downtown LA. And I was like, this is the worst. I hate it. Like, I don't want to be here. I want to go out, but I know I can't because I have visa issues and I just don't have the money right on the side to produce something. But what I did do, which again, looking back, I made a smart decision and said, look, if I've got to be in the workforce for longer, one, what skill sets do I have right now that I could go and use in an industry that I want to be in, i.e. real estate, right? So I was a structural engineer working on building buildings. And I was like, well, maybe I could go work for a developer, right? I'm not there yet. I'm not full-time on my business yet, but it's a step in the right direction. Okay, well, I've clearly got a skill set that I could possibly apply for some jobs. And that's where the framing starts to change, and you start to think, well, maybe this job I could get something out of this job and use it as a stepping stone to where I want to go. And so I think it's, who's the gentleman from Shark Tank? Guy who owns the Dallas.
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban. I think he talks about like, go out and get the highest paying corporate job you can to continue to learn within the business. So I joined a development company in Long Beach. Again, I needed to have the visa. I wanted to keep learning, and I kept doing deals on the side, but I was surrounded by real estate 24/7. And I was at that job for about 4.5 years before I eventually was able to, jump off and do it on my own. So again, that was my experience in terms of using my pain point in the W-2 to reframe to say, okay, what skill set can I go and use it, to continue my evolution as a person and as an entrepreneur, I think.
I took two approaches. I took this at one point. I don't remember the order of like what this happened in. Remember that in 2017, right before we got married, I quit my last day job. Just things it was environmental startup. Things came to a head. It was like where I was about to get married and take off anyway. I was like, you guys can eat it. Like, I'm done. It just wasn't working out. And it was really, 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 really scary. And I floundered around for like a long time, not knowing what I was doing and not really having, and like it's almost like a curse to have a really entrepreneurial mind in the beginning, because I wanted to start like 5 businesses all at once and I tried. And so obviously nothing happened with any of them because, as my old coach used to say, focus equals 1. So there was a lot of floundering around and like confusion. And of course that put a little bit of, a little bit
Pressure?
of strain maybe between us, and also within me, which can come out within a relationship. So I had no idea what I was doing. I wanted to be working full time, but I wasn't. And I did take the leap without having a safety net, because I felt I had no choice. I did eventually get things together and work and take a similar sort of bridge job. I assisted another designer once I kind of really focused down, got clear, did a lot more reading, read some Jen Sincero books, and, had to do like some inner work. And then I went and assisted another designer, and it was not great. It was a wild ride doing that. She was a very interesting person to work for, but it was so helpful. Like, even though I didn't like love it and love her and all the things, I learned so much. And as I used to tell my like students and people, like, you have to also learn what you don't want to do and how you don't want to be. And I think that it was a bridge job for me, but also instrumental in learning like what kind of boss I want to be, what kind of designer I want to be, how I want to run a business, which was, I felt like, just from the outside, like shocked at how she was having success, but like not knowing how to run a business. And that was like a really strong motivator for me to like build my foundation and how I use my systems and processes, which can be a bit hard for creative people. So it was hugely important to, I think, like, it seemed terrible at the time, but like all the struggles and like up and down which ways I went have, of course, like, you, if you choose to, you can learn from them, and it just contributes to your skill set and your goals later down the line. So my path was really windy, and I still had to do a lot of like weird stuff on the side, like production assistant, to earn some cash and stuff like that as I was doing it. And luckily I had his support in multiple meanings of the word too. And it was everything. It was really challenging. It was confronting. It was all the things.
I remember you saying at one stage, like, if she can do this business, and not naming the person who you used to work for, you're like, I can effing do this. So
yeah.
like,
Oh, nice. Absolutely. Yeah. And as I'm listening to you both speak, and I love just taking us through this whole journey, it sounds like there's no time's ever wasted. Like, the skills that you're learning just compounds upon itself. And I'm wondering how you guys were able to use or leverage each other's strengths and skills that you've picked up along your journeys into present day.
I like to brag that I introduced him to all these like nifty softwares and like ways of doing things, which he'll deny to this day, but it's true. And also just like, sometimes you need someone's outside perspective. Like, he was like working away on like a newsletter content or something.
No,
like,
it was
really,
a podcast. Remember, it was a podcast.
Oh, like the editing, or
yeah,
it was like something really like tedious and mundane. And I was like, and I'm not sure if you were still working full time or not.
Oh yeah,
so
definitely.
Huge weeks, like side hustle and working, and he's like, cursing at the screen while he's like trying to do the thing. I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, sometimes you just need to hear an outside person say like, delegate that, it's fine, like, and just get pushed in that little direction. Of course, we suffer from, what's that term where like you don't listen to the person who you're closest to?
Oh yeah, we suffer from that too.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
Something along the lines of tone deaf, or something.
Yeah, it's like
selective hearing.
It's
selective hearing.
Bingo. There you go.
Yeah, it's like closeness, advice, rebellion, or something.
Totally.
So we have both suffered from that, but I definitely, like with him, I was there, like, trying to help write his newsletters or help a little graphic design thing. And he'd help me when I didn't know how to draw with CAD, like do my first CAD drawing. And
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So
yeah, go on.
PTSD. So we were both like relying on each other heavily and needing sometimes just another person's opinion. So everything from the super technical to the emotional or like, outside logical opinion we've done.
I will give Erica credit for that. It is that push in the right direction to now, like I think you mentioned, it wasn't called Upwork at the time, it was called something else, but we ultimately, and I now use Upwork a lot, and I have used it for many, many years, and virtual assistants, and that was probably the push I needed to really, I think what she was essentially saying is your time is too valuable for this. Go out and pay someone to do the $15 or $10 an hour work, so you can just freaking relax on the weekend and not have
just
to.
Bringing it back to the 4-hour work week.
Right.
That was that inspo from there, and it's like, just get help where you can.
Can I share one story?
Sure.
Yeah.
So he spent an hour and a half trying to do an Instagram post. Like, so when you're talking about that, it's like, yeah, it's sort of how much is that hour worth, right? And so looking at from that perspective of like, how much is your time worth throughout the day? And it sounds like between the two of you, there's sort of like visionary integrator components. Can you guys talk more about that and how you've been able to identify and work with that process?
Yeah, look, as we're relaying these stories back, it's definitely, I see Erica's ability to pick out things and systemize them really, really well. As a former engineer, I do get stuck in the details and imperfection, and I lose sight of where I need to be going. But then I also like to observe things and be like, I can break that and put it back together again, and I can figure out that business, and I want to go touch that business. But wait, I don't know. I shouldn't. I've got this other business that I need to go do first. And there's just, all the things that once you start opening your mind up to how businesses work, you're like, oh, it's genius. I want to add that to my business. And so being, I think, very disciplined is probably, things that we have yin and yang, like, Erica being very systemized and wanting to build systems where I'm a little bit more gung-ho and just out there and just be like, good, close enough is good enough. Let's get going. Like I've got, stuff to do. So, but in some things I'm really, really detailed on, like spreadsheets, where on other things like writing a news blog, I'm like, I hate doing it, but where Erica would crush it. Right. So I read her newsletters and like, this is so well written. I read mine. I'm like, a 2-year-old wrote it. So it's just like, but that all goes back to what you're good at, what you're not good at. And I think that's where a spouse can, back to this whole antithesis of this podcast, is like having a spouse to support you and be a mirror and be a reflection of what, of what things that you lack, and everything from emotional intelligence all the way through to figuring out how to edit a podcast on Upwork. So
yeah, I completely agree there. And I think one thing that I want to add as an extra dimension to this is the fact that, sometimes you don't know what you need. Like you don't know, like emotionally what you need or when something needs to change. So Erica, when you said that, like you were able to point or pinpoint something, you're pointing more to like, an actual, like a situation that was happening. And I think maybe you meant this also, but like Sophie is really good at identifying patterns and seeing what's going to happen next, because she knows me so well, like almost better than I know myself. Right. And so she's going to tell me, this is not a sustainable thing that you're doing right now. We have to change this right now. And it used to be that I didn't listen to any of that. Right. Or at least I said, okay, sure. And then, when I was back in the office, when I was working, I just kept doing the same thing that I was doing. But then, I've learned that there's real power in listening to the advice of your spouse, because they can see the moods that you have that maybe is subconscious and you're not recognizing yourself, right? There's like an extra level of awareness. So I wanted to bring that coloring in as well, and ask if maybe you guys have observed something like that in each other.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will say, like, we're the same age, and we don't need to give our age away, but emotionally Erica is like light years ahead. So I'm very, really, men are typically 3 to 5 years, cognitively less developed.
I'm thinking it was like 10 or 20 years.
well, but I think what Erica was very good at identifying exactly like patterns that weren't healthy for me. I know she got me at the time, like I tend to want to do all the things, right? Because I'm just like, stuff it, I'll do it all, because I don't want to take the time to delegate. And she identified in me that, hey, that's not healthy. And you might need to go see someone about that, like in terms of a business coach who can help you better mentally deal with having all the pressures of running not a big company, but a company that has a lot of investors involved and a lot of moving pieces. So that was, kudos.
Oh, yeah. So what I got you like
What was that
class to his now business coach.
Yeah, my now business coach was from Erica.
Again, a little push, like try it. And conversely, for me, he has provided a lot of the support where I was lacking confidence and mindset and all the things that a lot of women business owners experience or seem to experience. Maybe we talk about it more. I don't know. More than the confident straight white male who happens to be really tall with a cute accent. Like it's just, we're having different experiences, and over time he's come to understand mine a little bit more, because I think at first he was like, oh, I'm good, like just do it, and like but like over time he's really like sees that there's different dynamics, and people will treat me differently, all the things that can contribute, my internal ones too, that are just perceptions and not real. And he's helped out a lot with that, because I have struggled with a giant mountain of fraudy feelings and intimidation and fear. So that has been really helpful to me. And then on the fun side, like oftentimes when we're just driving, we'll like just talk about different business ideas or like stuff, or how do I handle this situation? And like, it's so helpful. And it's fun. Like, it's nice that we both share the excitement over what the entrepreneur like world and mind is and can offer. And it's nice to get like a little bit of reinvigoration in that regard.
Yeah. But I will say, like, that's taken work, right? That wasn't always like that. And not that it was a different dynamic. It's just that, remember, we're two different human beings on two different wavelengths coming into this journey at two different times. And so, that takes work and effort as spouses to come together. Even though we've got two separate businesses, we still need to show up and rock up for each other. And that takes work on my end and her end and together. So both, from an emotional point of view and a mindset point of view. So yeah, I think, we've sowed the seeds through the work we've done individually and together to help to be in a place where we can use each other as a real sounding board to be better humans and leaders and entrepreneurs and investors and all that sort of stuff. I know you've made a comment, like, and I heard it on another podcast again, you hear on something like, oh, I remember you saying that. Like, she's been always very good at like people, assessing people or business partners. And like the new thing coming out of my past partnerships is like, you got to pass the Erica sniff test. Like if we've got to go to dinner or something, and if she ain't signing off, we ain't getting in business together. So there's like, I heard someone say that, and I was like, oh, I think you said it to me once. So yeah,
that's incredible.
Yeah. And one, thank you for just bringing all of you forth, and being vulnerable and sharing all, because this is what this podcast is all about. And Erica, I just love what you said about like, feeling that imposter syndrome, that feeling fraud, because I think so many of us struggle with that. And the fact that you guys were able to come together, knowing your differences, but really just walking every step of the way, and then to building what you guys have built to this present day. My question for both of you is, for listeners out there who are just starting, who want to get on the same page, who are listening to Reed and Erica and be like, man, how do I get there? They're so cool and they're like so synergized. Like what are the first steps? What's some advice you could give to them?
We're both very independent, and we both have, I think you need to have support outside of your partner too.
Right.
Whether you need to pay a coach or therapist or like your meditation teacher, like whatever it is, you definitely need to like keep being your own person and doing what you need to do as an individual besides as a unit first. I don't think, like, there have definitely, not everything is synergistic and not everything is all gravy. And there's definitely been times where I'll have like asked him a question, like, what does this real estate term mean? And like, he explained it and I didn't understand. And then we're in a fight about it. Like, like that's happened. So especially if you're going to like work together, like when we came together to work on some design projects for, his, like that had a big
Best client,
too.
apparently. Best client she's ever had. So
like, so there's definitely been bumps in the road, like make no mistake about it. And so just, you know, expect that there are going to be unexpected things and not good things too. So don't have any like false visions of perfection. Make sure that you're like independently supported and healthy, like too, in that regard. And maybe I'll think of more things to say after you.
no, I'll like echo Erica as well. I think, you know, they talk about the three relationships: relationship with yourself, the your spouse's relationship with themselves, and then the relationship together. And then how, as being an entrepreneur, that all ties to one. Hopefully the spouse, whether it be the male or the female, gets what your journey you're going on. But that there, I know other people that I've spoken to it's sort of broken up relationships because the one person just didn't get on board with the other. Now that's not a judgment of that. They just didn't like risk or didn't like certain things. And so I think you have to be coming from a place of, because when you do start on this journey, you're again, go back, you're so excited. You're like, hey, get involved and get excited as I'm about this one topic, you know, and then like the person like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You know, like, no. So just having a little bit of sympathy around that. Not everyone's going to be on your same wavelength, and that's okay. But that comes back to in the beginning. I know I probably wasn't like that in the beginning, but it's taken through working on myself in order to come and present like, hey, I am an entrepreneur. This is my life I want to live. What do you think? And are you on board? And luckily she said yes, and she's an entrepreneur. And, you know, so all those things sort of come together through working on those three relationships.
Yeah, I can't emphasize the importance of this enough. And it's the same journey that Sophie and I have been on. We've had personal coaches as well that have been kind of like coaching us on the individual side alone, because just like you said, there's three dynamics in all the relationships. There's each other, right, individually, and then there's the total like togetherness. And what I couldn't help but hearing and also like bringing up in my own memory as you guys were talking is the fact that when we were working with our personal coaches, as soon as we got ourselves in order, because there was a lot to unpack, right? It makes things so much easier, right? Because, you know, it's so easy for one spouse to be saying, why isn't the other person this way, right? And pretty soon, when you keep asking that question over and over again, well, you notice there's a common thread, right? Mm-hmm. And the thread is you. So once you start understanding a lot of this should be introspective rather than looking outside, I think that's when a lot of the magic starts to happen. And so what I would like to do is ask you guys, you know, on your personal journeys, have you found that to be the case? And if so, you know, maybe you can take us on a high level view of what you guys went through personally to get to the point where you are right now.
Yeah, so 100%, you're completely correct that I go back to emotional intelligence, and Erica, it's come through self-awareness, through working on myself, where I'm sitting at 2022. When I was in 2012, I was a different person, right? I was 26. I was, you know, a little bit more headstrong and, you know, my way or the highway type of thing. And that's where the working, being understanding that we all have shortfalls and the way in which we communicate to one another. I've grown a lot in that regard, but again, it goes back to working on oneself. So you think you are working on yourself with all the reading of the books and the getting involved in the investing, you know, meetups and all that sort of stuff. And that's really, really good. But then there's other stuff in terms of interpersonal relationships, communication, how you rock up for the other person, both emotionally, passively, you know, energy wise and actively. So that has been, again, something looking back has not been smooth sailing at all, because we're humans, we're imperfect beings. No one's perfect. And we have our baggage from before, and you have to unpack that in order to set yourself right to then rock up to either support the other person or just be in a better headspace than what, you know, we both are. Like looking back to where we were when we moved here from Australia, like I remember how stressful that was, finding an apartment in New York City and all the stuff, and, you know, just it's a lot. So for me, we've come a long way. And here's the best part about it is, like, you're going to continue to grow. And in 10 years time from now, we will continue to work on each other and hope and be in the same, even stronger position than what we are today. So that's exciting, right? So, yeah.
For me, I find like it's so clear to me now, but it wasn't at the time, although I guess I stumbled through it. Like, to your listeners who are thinking of just starting, like, you have to know it's hard. Some people fall into things and like take off, and great, good for them. I've never known anyone really. Maybe it happens. So you have to know it's hard, and you have to like have a really strong why. And for me, I have figured out how interconnected life and your holistic life is with business, and especially like with our aspirations of wanting the business to work for our lifestyle. But it goes on like so many deeper levels of how interconnected your work is, especially as you're like making it a part of your identity, I guess, for better or worse. But for me, this whole time has been non-stop work on myself. Non-stop. Everything. Like, I was kind of like, when I first started, I mean, you know, you take your 20s to figure things out and try new things, and no one's got it all figured out. But like, I was not doing a great job at adulting. Like, I just wasn't. And in all regards, like, you know, luckily I had the sense to like choose and cultivate a great partner and relationship. But in other regards, I was like, wasn't there yet. So, and that was a moment in time where I got a little push from him that I needed to kind of like, you know, see, as we were talking about before, like the patterns that I was in. And I have since then been, I'm exhausted. I've been working nonstop on myself and the business. It's the same thing at the same time. And that's at least been my experience. And I know a lot of people have felt that way, especially women, maybe. So it's been like, I was kind of just like a mess with things. I needed to learn productivity and time management and not letting things fall through the cracks. And I jumped into that like head first, really deep, loved it, learned everything I could, got a like online productivity coach for a little bit. Like there was, that's where I started. And then I learned about my relationship with money and worked really hard on that, had my mind blown and read the books and did the things. Then I finally got a business coach, but it was group coaching. And then I finally got an individual one. Like, then I'm in therapy all the time. Like, then we're, you know, doing all the things. Like, it's been non-stop. And you have to expect to do a little bit of that, because I don't think you can grow as a business owner. I don't think you can grow as a person and grow as a couple in the same way, like direction, because people grow, you can grow apart or together, you know? So I just want to make
takes work.
Like, what's that expression? I don't want to make no bones about it. That's what I want to say. Yeah. About like how much has gone into everything.
You guys have described perfectly the entrepreneurial journey that we have also gone on. And also, of all the couples that we've talked to, it's been pretty much the same thing, but you guys have explained it in such a granular and clear way. And I think, you know, what it boils down to, and I'd like to get your opinion on this too, and then we'll start to wrap this up a little bit, is that, you know, you just simply don't know what you don't know, right? Like when you go out to do these things, like you're setting goals, and then these goals are preambles for bigger goals. And as these things develop, like you're wrapped up in the business of things, and you're trying to achieve more and more and more, but you have to grow in other ways in order to facilitate that to happen, right? You have to learn to let go of for instance, on my side, you have to learn to let go of the control. Exactly, or like being able to do everything. You have to delegate to a virtual assistant. Then you eventually have to give entire job functions to team members. Then you have to learn to set vision and be inspiring and keep people motivated, right? And so all of these skills that grow is business. And what I love about this too is that business is business. And that's why, like, I'm so lucky to be able to have an entrepreneur as a wife as well, and a partner, and as a marriage, you know, partner, working together on all these aspects, because you guys we're all trying to grow, and keeping the growth in the same direction, picking each other up, passing along tactics and skills with one another. I think that's where it's at. And, you know, I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. If there's anything that popped up to you during my little ramble there.
For me, I think it's two things. One is, what's Tony Robbins say? You overestimate what we can achieve in a year, but you can underestimate what we can achieve in a decade. And for me personally, like we both moved back to the US 10 years, like going on 10 years ago. No, it's 10 years ago. It was 10 years ago. Wow. And to look how far we've both come has been incredible. And so there's a little bit of like, by the time we're 45, we're gonna, like, it's the last 10 years have been freaking awesome. The next 10 years are going to be even better. Like there's a little bit of that. We've already proved to ourselves we can do it. And so there's not as much pressure and enjoy the journey a little bit more. I think the other thing is like talking about pillars in life. So, you know, pillars meaning like, you know, what you define by. So your business, your health, your relationships, you know, if you're spiritual or religious, but sometimes we focus maybe as entrepreneurs too much on the business and let other things like relationships and family and health go to the wayside. And so I've interviewed on my show a lot of successful business owners who have the divorced, you know, wife, kids that hate them, shitty health, and all they've got is their one pillar, which is their business. And if that goes, then the only way to go is down. So I think what I'm trying to get at is like, in the beginning, you're all about the business, but also don't forget the journey. And you want to work really hard on your business. You're going to work, you know, long hours, long nights, but be evenly spread as best you can. And that's come through my beautiful wife here telling me and reminding me that over time that we're in a business to create a lifestyle for ourselves. We can't ever afford to not take the time to be with one another or be present with friends or work on our health or work on ourselves. And the business is also going to be there as well. But if you don't have those other pillars figured out, the business won't also grow as well.
I mean, what are you doing it for? Right. Like that's the question that you have to ask yourself is, if you don't have your health, well, I mean, it's pretty clear what would happen there if you put all of your energy and wealth and then your health declines. But also, you know, if you don't have any relationships or people around you to celebrate with, that's just not a fulfilling place to be.
Right.
And, you know, I implore the listeners out there to listen to Reed and Erica because, you know, just looking over your bio, we didn't cover this, Reed, but just for the listeners, you can tell that you guys have walked the walk because over the last 10 years, you started with a $38,000 property, all cash in 2012, right? And now you guys are up to controlling over $500 million worth of US commercial real estate assets. And I wanted to ask you as my final question, that success, how much of that success would you attribute to you guys growing personally?
Pretty much nearly like at least 80% of it. Like there has to be hard work and determination and all that in there, but without working on yourself, I think that is, and that looking back, like I'm thinking out like as you start to read these self-help books, as you start to look at financial independence, what it inspires you to rise to the occasion, to be the better human that you want to be, and give yourself permission that you can go out and achieve that. So that in itself will require you to look inwards and say, what am I short on? And sure that there's other elements of all that going in there. But yes, I think a lot, like for me, working on oneself is the majority of that quote unquote success.
Yeah, almost. I mean, I have different metrics than what you listed with Reed's syndication and deals. But for mine, like I said, like a lot of it was me in my own way, or not knowing where to start, or not wanting to take avenues that I was giving advice to go down, all because of the mindset stuff and whatever like internal roadblocks I had for the most part. Let's say like 90% of it, because some stuff like you literally just have to learn, and you have to learn like how to market and how to make a website, whatever those like little things are, like to put yourself out there. But the figurative put yourself out there is like what I had to work on quite a lot. So like I had to get over like feeling all weird and insecure, and like basically asking other people out, like on coffee dates to talk about business stuff. And like, I had never done that before. And it was so scary, like it's nothing. So, just those pushing myself forward in that regard is a lot of it. And my own, weird feelings, just getting over myself. I had to get over myself over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, you guys, well said. I think that sums it up absolutely perfectly. Being a bigger person will help you think bigger and set bigger goals, and also get you through the work that needs to be done in order to achieve the goals. And so you guys have both done incredible in that space as well. So I want to commend you there. And with that, what I want to do is I want to transition ourselves into the final segment of the show, which is called the Rapid Round. And it's 5 questions that we ask every one of our guests, and they're meant to be answered in a quick manner within 30 seconds or so, or something like that. And we're going to go ahead and rapid fire them off to you right now, if you guys are ready.
Let's do it.
All right. Number 1, and I think we'll alternate. So Sophie will read the second and fourth one. Number 1, what book has had the biggest impact on you and why? I think I know what most of your answers are, outside of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or the Bible.
For me, it was Jen Sincero's You Are a Badass at Making Money. I can't even tell you how many times I listened to that on Audible.
And for me, it's going to be Key Person of Influence by Dan Priestley.
Excellent.
All right, next question. If people wanted to emulate your success, what is the first actionable thing that they could do to follow in your footsteps?
For me, I think they need to get pretty clear on the why. Like, when all else fails and your failures have brought you to your knees, which will probably happen, you have to have a really clear why and vision of how you want things to go. And reasons. Sometimes I'll think about do I want to give up, or do I want to go work for someone else, or do I just want to get through this hard time? And it's always, I just want to get through this hard time. So yeah, have a really clear why and go. That needs to be the vision and the light that you go back to time again.
And I think this a second step, more stepping stone number 2 would be, go out and try and network with as many people who you aspire to be. So surround yourself with those people. In real estate, it's quite easy because there's a lot of real estate meetups. Maybe in the interior design space for women, there's not as many meetups, but try and surround yourself with people who you aspire to be.
Number 3 is, what one tool, process, or hack in the last 3 months has helped you save time and or effort?
I don't think 3 months, but it's definitely been more consistent is journaling / I'm old school. I've got a pen and paper here where I do my to-do list every week. I like the action of crossing out. So for me, it's making sure I sit down on a Sunday, get it out of my mind onto paper, so I know what the week's going to be like. You?
I could talk about this for 3 hours. I love this so much.
Maybe it's 30 seconds.
I know it's 30 seconds. Okay.
So.
I'll just give you 2 quick ones. I really love the, what do you call it, browser and mail integrator thingy called Boomerang that you can use to schedule meetings with people. It helps you deal with a bunch of cool stuff with emails too. I've not seen a scheduler quite like that, so I really love that. And I forgot the other one, so we'll skip it.
That's perfect. That'll work.
Well, if it comes back, I want to know.
Yeah, let us know.
Okay, next question is, if the people you know had to describe you with one word, what would that be?
I will say for Erica, people, I would say resilient. That's the first thing.
Ooh, I love that.
That's the first thing that came to mind.
I don't know if other people would describe me as that without knowing my whole life story, but sure.
That came to mind. So
for Reed, the one word is outgoing.
Yeah, I could see that. Awesome. Very cool, guys. All right. Last question that we have here is, what small thing do most people not know about you?
Me or you?
For me,
what is it?
I used to ride horses and do show jumping back in the day, and no one knows that. So
now everyone knows it.
Everyone knows.
I can't think of anything interesting to say at all. Only thing I can think is I'm technically from New York. I moved out here when I was 4. My parents are from Brooklyn? I don't know. What else can you think of?
For you?
Yeah.
That's
what
cool.
Don't people know about me?
That don't people know about you? You can jump really high.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool. So now we've got to put that to the test. So do you guys have like a meter bar or something that we can?
He's joking me. I can barely get off the ground. Sometimes in photos I'll try my best just to impress him, but it's sadly white girl can't jump situation.
That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Well, very, very cool. So Erica, Reed, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. And before we let you guys go and move on with the rest of your day in beautiful, sunny Southern California, why don't you guys tell the listeners how they can find out more about what you have going on, or your offerings or anything? You got an open stage right now.
Cool. My business is called Eco Method Interiors. I work across all sectors, and I actually really love helping other businesses make more money through really impactful design. So come see me and say hi at ecomethodinteriors.com. That's probably the best place.
Cool.
For me, you can just go to reedgoosens.com. That's reedgoosens.com. Books, podcasts, stuff up there, audiobooks. Check it out. And if you're ever coming through LA and you want to say g'day, just hit me up at info@reedgoosens.com. We can talk real estate.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you, Erica, Reed. I really appreciate it. And I wish we had a chance to talk a little bit about international capital raising and stuff like that. But maybe
I can come back on. We can definitely talk about that.
That'd be
we
awesome.
did a lot of blabbing, so thanks for letting us do that.
This was great. This is gold.
Yeah, usually the most organic ones are the best ones to go with, and we just decided to roll with it this time. So thank you guys for hopping on, and for you listeners that are also with us and have listened all the way to the end, we really appreciate you guys. So please, wherever you're listening or watching this, please like, subscribe, give us a thumbs up, whatever it is that you can do to interact with us. We want to hear more about what you think about the show so that we can get more incredible guests on here like Reed and Erica. And then we can also appease those algorithm gods and keep moving up the chain so we get more exposure to more and more people and get better guests. And it's just this beautiful cycle of goodness that we want to try to incorporate in our business here. So thank you guys for listening. And again, Reed, Erica, thank you guys for hopping on.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And this is Derek.
And this is Sophie.
We're signing off for the day. Thanks, everyone.